I know many great engineers with an excellent skill set who just can't seem to find a job. They get invited to interviews because they have the right technical skills, but for some reason, in the end, they do not receive an offer. If you ever have been in a similar situation, then we're about to change that in this video. I'm Simon. I'm a Vice President of Technology in a green energy company and a former McKinsey consultant, and I've interviewed engineers myself. And today I'm going to break down to you step by step everything I know about interviewing to make sure that you're going to land your next dream job. Before we dive in, if you found this video and maybe also my previous ones helpful, I would really appreciate if you could like the video and hit the subscribe button. That's going to help me put out more content like this for you on YouTube. So what is the interviewer actually looking for when he's interviewing you? He wants to understand if he would like to work with you and if you would be enriching for the team and for the company, if you would bring value. And there's a couple of ways you can assess that. One is looking at your technical skill set, your know-how. And this is actually yours to lose because the fact that you got invited to the interview shows that you theoretically have all the technical know-how and skills that is needed for that position. So of course, the technical part of the interview is important, but where most engineers fail in my experience is not the technical part, it's the soft skill and the behavioral part. And there they want to see how do you communicate, for example, internally, but also with external stakeholders and with the leadership. Are you a likable person? Not arrogant, but still confident, not shy, but also not putting yourself into the spotlight too much. Are you able to perform in a team collaboratively? And are you able to perform under pressure? And are you able to problem solve difficult situations or problem solve situations that you have not experienced before? And the last point, do you have the right motivation to join the company? And do your values and the company values align? If you can make them feel that you fulfill all those points, you are going to receive job offers. And how do we practically do that now? Well, the first part, as I mentioned, the technical part is covered in a technical interview, and I will do a separate video on just that because it's important, but we're going to cover it separately. What we're going to focus on here is the soft skill and the behavioral part of the interview. In most cases that I have been interviewed and also the interviews that I have conducted myself, there are typically two types of questions that test this behavioral, the soft skill part. The first type of question is usually something along the line like, walk me through your CV or tell me something about this and this past experience. And the second type of question is typically about a past experience, and sometimes it can also be a fictive situation where the interviewer wants you to show a certain social skill. So let's start with how do you walk your interviewer through your CV? If you remember our little checklist of things that the interviewer is looking for in the beginning, then on top of that list was your technical know-how. And yes, they mostly test that with a separate technical interview, but also walking through your CV is an excellent opportunity to show them that your skill set really applies well to the current role. So when you walk them through your CV, make sure to connect most of your experiences, if possible, to whatever is needed or relevant to the current position. So for example, if you worked on software ABC or you learned skill XYZ and you think that could be relevant to the current position, then please make that connection. So for that, it's really important that before you go into the interview, you prepare yourself and understand what kind of skill sets they are looking for in the description of the role. What kind of skill sets does, for example, your interviewer has and what is he looking for? Maybe there was some communication between you before. What kind of products does the company offer? Which locations are they in? For example, if they are opening an office in Spain and you have some Spanish skills and, for example, there needs to be communication with customers or colleagues in Spain, then could be really helpful to mention that. So make sure that as much as possible, you reference your past experience and make it relevant to the role. This way you show that you have won the technical expertise and the know-how that they're looking for, but second also that you have the right motivation. You spend some time looking at the technical description of the role and understand how you can contribute to the company. And that brings us to the second point that I just mentioned in the beginning. They want to understand your motivation for applying for this position and joining the company. So it's really important that you make the interviewer feel like there is a consistent storyline behind your CV. Like you didn't just jump from company A to company B or from function C to function D without any reason, but that there is behind each step a reasoning. For example, you wanted to learn a certain skill set. You wanted to work in a certain geography. You wanted to learn a certain social skill. And you also have a particular reason why you want to join this company that fits well into the storyline of your CV. This way you make them feel like there's a purpose why you're here, and you're not just using them as a stepping stone for your career and maybe in a year again you'll disappear. But you actually have thought about this position and it fits well to you and you fit well to the company. And in connection to that, a typical question that usually comes in interviews is something like, tell me where you see yourself in 5 years, or what kind of development in the company are you looking for? Again, they want to test, do you really apply for this position with a purpose, or are you just there because it's a random job offer on a random Tuesday? And by showing that you've thought about how you can develop in the company, you show them that you're invested, that you're in there for the long term, and that you thought about how you can contribute to the company. Another important criteria in our checklist in the beginning is communication. So when you walk them through your CV, they're going to pay a lot of attention on how you communicate. Do you do that in a structured manner, in a concise manner? Can you quantify wherever it's possible? And also, very importantly, are you able to communicate your technical achievements and your technical know-how in an understandable way to non-technical stakeholders? Because that's really important for them. They want to understand if when you worked at a company, are you able to tell other people like your managers or customers or other third parties about your work in a way that they will understand even if they're not as deep in the subject matter as you are. So make sure that you really prepare, sit down for a couple of minutes and practice walking through your interview and pay attention. Am I concise? Am I structured? And am I able to break things down in a way that they're understandable to people that don't have my background? Another important point that I mentioned in the beginning that they're going to check for is your character. They're going to look, how are you talking about former colleagues or your former boss? So make sure not to talk negatively about them. Are you authentic in your communication? Are you confident but not cocky? Can you build a personal connection, a personal relationship with your interviewer? Essentially, is it going to be a nice experience sitting with you in a room for 8 hours, 5 days in a week, and work with you on a topic? Are you a good team player? And are you contributing value to the team? Do you have a growth mindset? Do you like to approach challenges? Those are all factors that they're going to look at. So make sure that you communicate that and you show that in your attitude and your behavior in the interview. So how does this practically look like? I'm going to walk you through my CV back then, about 2.5 years ago, when I was applying for my first role in the green energy industry. Back then I was a hydrogen exporter, leader of the hydrogen electrolysis department, right? So I'm just going to walk you through my CV, how it looked back then at the time, and make sure that I cover all the elements that I just mentioned. Hello, I'm Simon. I have a background in chemistry and chemical engineering. I did my bachelor's and master's in chemistry, but with a strong focus on chemical technology or industrial chemistry, because I was always fascinated on how to transform ideas from a lab scale into a real industrial project or real industrial setting. That was also one of the 2 reasons why for my PhD I moved into chemical engineering, because I got offered the opportunity to develop a fully new process for the more sustainable production of chlorine from hydrogen chloride via electrolysis. And the second reason I took up on this position was that I'm very passionate about sustainability and decarbonization. So I saw the opportunity to develop a novel process that has some actual industrial applicability and has the opportunity to decarbonize the chemical industry. And in that PhD, I was focusing on electrolysis, not just in the lab scale, but also developing a full-scale process around it, including purification, separation, to make sure that I'm not just producing an idea that's valid on a lab scale, but something that can actually be transformed into a real project in an industrial setting. And this is also one reason why I'm applying for this position today, because I really believe that green hydrogen is a powerful vector to decarbonize our industry. And I also believe that this PhD experience is going to really help me perform well at the role I'm currently applying for here, because I was, 1, building electrolyzers very hands-on in the lab, but also 2, transforming that know-how into real applicable industrial processes. And in that role as a head of hydrogen, it's very important to understand the function of an electrolyzer to be able to communicate with electrolyzer OEMs, but also to be able to transform that know-how into actual projects. And to not only look at technical aspects, but also to take into consideration factors like the costs or scalability to make sure that the overall project in the end is executable. During that PhD, I also patented that process that I was developing, which was a very insightful experience for me, because I had to learn how to communicate those technical research results in a way that lawyers and also department heads were understanding what I was talking about, and to make sure that the essence of those technical results are really translated into the patent text. And in the end of the PhD, I was even considering to start my own company using that patent to really bring that process out into the industry to maximize impact and not just have developed something that in the end doesn't find any application somewhere. In the end, because of various factors like the market situation, but also the fact that I understood that I have a lot of experience in chemistry and chemical know-how, but not really a lot of expertise in a business setting. I, however, decided to first gain some experience in the actual business world and to understand how the economics of such projects work. That's why I decided to work at McKinsey as a consultant, still focusing 80%, I would say, on green energy projects, mostly green hydrogen and a little bit of green chemicals. I worked with a lot of electrolyzer OEMs, but also chemical companies that wanted to enter the electrolyzer component market, for example, manufacturing membranes or gaskets or other subcomponents, and really got a good understanding of the functional working principle of an electrolyzer in an industrial scale, so not just in the lab scale, but really in an industrial setting on how they are produced in production lines, but also how actual electrolyzer projects look like and work. And I also consult them on different functions and problems, all the way ranging from supply chain to technical product development and looking at how their technical development actually fits the current market needs. So got an overall well-rounded view of the hydrogen market and a very particular focus on the actual development and production of electrolyzer components. I worked with a lot of international teams. I was in projects in Australia, in the US, in Mexico. And that's something that I'm really passionate about. And I also saw that your company has an international footprint. So working together with international teams is something that I really enjoy and that I have a lot of experience in over 10 different projects at my time at McKinsey. And even when I was doing my PhD partly in the US and also my master's there. And I really enjoyed my time at McKinsey. But one main thing I miss, and that's also another important reason why I'm applying for this role, is that I was consulting in projects for 2 or 3 months. But then afterwards, I'm just joining the next project. I have very little impact and also even knowledge of how those projects further develop. That is something that's not possible in consulting just by the nature of the business. But I feel that in the role that I'm applying for here right now, it would be possible for me to invest myself into the project from the beginning all the way to the end and take responsibility for the steps in between. And on top of that, in an industry or topic that I'm really passionate about, sustainability and decarbonization. So I'm really happy to be interviewing for this position here today. So this is how I would answer the question of walk me through your CV or any related questions like walk me through your work at company XYZ. That's the first type of questioning in the soft skill or behavioral type interviews. In the next video, we're going to look at how we best prepare and answer that second type of questioning, which was aimed at understanding your character, your personality better. If you remember in the beginning of the video, they're going to ask you questions like, tell me about a time where you showed leadership, or tell me about a time where you showed resilience in solving a problem. This is what we're going to deal with in the next video. Looking forward to see you there. Until next time.